What is it called one more time?
Staphylococcal aureus, Staphylococcal, staphylococcal, and aureus is Aureus. Then there also is Shigella species. Shigella, that also, the source of that is generally humans. The onset is about 1 to 7 days.
What do you mean the source is humans?
How it came to be in the food, contamination from humans. We're going to talk about this in a second right now.
What was that one that you just, the last one?
Shigella. There's all sorts of Shigella species. And then the onset time after having consumed a food that was contaminated is about 1 to 7 days. And then there's listeriosis. Listeriosis.
Could you spell that?
Listeriosis. The source for that is generally infected animals and water that was used. And the onset of that incubation time can be about 1 to 3 weeks.
So like a dead animal in a stream?
Yeah. So now, a couple of things. Generally, around preparing food, one should either have a situation where all the hair completely is kept and put together thoroughly, or one has a hat, one puts the hair back and has a hat. That's very important because you notice that hair and all sorts of things could have ended up. So another thing is when you're preparing food, you're not leaning over the food, preparing the food, because then there could be saliva in there and all sorts of things. God help us. But so now you should always do what you know, in preparing the food, you're always back just a tad from the food, and you're really mindful, you're very protective to make sure that there is no cross-contamination. Now, is it all right that a food that was left out in another situation other than live food where cooking is concerned, if food was left out, how could that be sanitized? How can it be made sanitary again? It can be reheated. They can cook that, you see. They take it up to about 170 degrees if it's going to be reheated. And so they can be working with food that was left out for a while, and they go, oh yeah, let's just reheat that up. And they'll heat it up to 170 degrees, and apparently they kill things, but actually that's like really less than excellent, actually. That food is not good at all.
Because that's what I'm thinking of. Like, when you go to a pizza place, it's been sitting there for so long, and like heating it up doesn't seem sufficient at all.
Yes. Well, it's really been cooked to death already. So any organisms
It's like hardly matters
don't
to
have
them.
much of a chance. But underneath that heat, then they reheat it. It really is a drug. Pizza is a drug, and you'll be better off actually doing a line of cocaine instead. People have a major charge on cocaine, they have no charge at all on pizza, and that's absolutely incorrect. You should have a major charge on pizza, like just the same as people have a big old charge on some other illicit drugs and things.
So because we don't, that's because we're kind of like used
some
to
of
it
these
the way
things.
an alcoholic doesn't get drunk really.
Oh, you'd be surprised actually. People's moods can be quite affected after pizza.
Yeah.
Yes. We
Well,
just
and
don't
if you pay
recognise
attention,
that
yeah, if you pay attention, you can like,
it can be food allergy. and all
even
sorts of
when you
things.
eat anything, you can feel the difference that it makes. Like, I don't think people recognize that they get sort of sedated after they eat.
Yeah, lots of things that people eat is sedating. We're going to be talking a little bit about food as medicine and what sort of effect these foods have on our consciousness a little bit as we go.
Why do you say that it would be better off doing the line of cocaine?
Because pizza every day, if you rotate it with another drug, you'll be able to do the pizza. But if you don't rotate that, right, eventually that actually you really will die from that. And there's more people actually die of eating that drug than any other drug.
Could you talk about that a little more? Or we can
Um,
do that later?
There's about 220,000 deaths every 2 months, premature deaths in this country alone, that's related to eating cooked grains and cooked dairy. They are the two biggest drugs on the earth, is cooked dairy and cooked grains. More people die prematurely of those two drugs than any other drugs on the face of the earth. And then flesh is hotly behind there somewhere. But actually,
What do people say?
starch
Like, what kind
and
of things?
dairy is the worst.
'Cause when someone dies, nobody says, well, they died because they were
Course,
eating too
of
much
course
dairy.
not,
So
of course not.
what do we say
That's
instead?
right.
What do we-
Wouldn't that be so lovely? They would say, oh yes, that's right. Yeah, Grandpa, you just kicked the bucket from too much dairy.
What do we say we're dying from? Like, what kind
Diabetes.
Oh,
Cancer.
it's amazing that
That's-
if the person actually died because they were given a drug, the coroner might just say, gosh, this person died of a heart attack.
of... So it's like, people like to say, oh, there was their cholesterol level and they had a heart attack, and we just don't know why.
Yes, that's right.
Like,
I think that's sort of an accurate kind of a sort of a thing
Yeah,
that,
that's what
that
happens.
generally is the sort of thing said actually. All right, we just have a little bit more left and we're done here. Everybody's been really patient. So now, when we work with live food, is because it's not cooked, you see, we're not reheating anything or cooking anything to actually kill microorganisms and that sort of thing. So all cold foods cannot be touched by hand. All cold foods have to have some barrier between the hand and the food. And that is absolutely very important, because actually if a health inspector saw you, they absolutely would pour Clorox all over all of the food you were preparing, so nobody could eat it, and they just would call that garbage actually. Okay, so we have just a few minutes left
Do you
here.
mean you've got to wear gloves if you touch into it?
Yes, you absolutely have to wear gloves. If you pick something up, you have to have a barrier between your hand and what you're picking up. And it's just good practice. It's just good hygiene. It's just really good practice, that's all. You know.
Where I work is a fish market, and they all wear plastic gloves, and then they handle money also.
Yes. Okay,
That's
great
not
question.
serious.
Is that okay?
Wow.
It's not really, but in the fish market, they don't care because actually the fish is going to be cooked. And so it might be okay in a situation like that. But if you contaminate your gloves, you absolutely have to put that in the garbage and get new gloves. If somebody shows up for work, you're the live food chef, and they're like sniffling like crazy or something, would that be okay? No, it's not. You have to really make sure that the people who are working with the food are really in good health, and that's important. So would it be all right for people actually, you know, to have a snack while they're preparing food?
No, you can't bring it to your mouth because then
No.
you're breathing all over.
Absolutely not. As a live food chef, you should really be mindful. If somebody wants to have something to eat, you should encourage people, gosh, why not take a little time out and go relax and sit and have a little break? That's so very important that somebody has a break. If somebody wants to have a little bit of a nibble, but they're eating whilst they're actually doing something, it's like, whoa, do you do that actually? The person might say, yeah, I do this all the time. It's like, oh my God, you mean you're eating on the run? The person says, yeah. But you see, the person, you have to be very relaxed whilst you eat, because blood can only be around the stomach when one is perfectly relaxed. If one is thinking of taxation or
Or watching the
thinking
news.
of the news or something, yeah, right, their blood is less than going to be around the stomach like it should be. Actually, when people think of their tax and all this sort of thing, the blood immediately rushes to the arms and the legs, actually for action, you know. That's right. And also too, the brain is not able quite to turn itself off yet. you know, and it's amazing because passively being moved is only a very recent phenomena for us. And so we're still learning to be able to disengage the brain. And so still yet we have like patterns of being on an elevator, for instance, an escalator, and then as it goes into the floor, you know, if it's not a moving escalator, everybody sort of has got that little bit of anticipation of what it's supposed to do, but it's not moving, but you still sort of did that. It's like, wait a minute, what's happening here, you know? Don't have control of my brain, I know this thing's not moving, but it sort of happened to me anyway. It's a recent phenomena, the idea of our being passively moved. But that's very important that we make sure that you're perfectly relaxed whilst you eat. There could be no eating around the food because then stuff can get dropped and all sorts of things in the food that's being prepared. That's very important. There can be no touching of the nose or touching of your hair or anything like this with your gloves and then going back to the food. The health inspectors generally appear as a regular customer, and she or he is sort of just comes in, you know, in a trench coat. but they generally won't tell you at all, you know, that they're a health inspector or anything like that, but they'll just observe everybody, you know, out of the corners of their eyes so that it doesn't look like they're observing anybody. But they're going to watch you like a hawk and just to really see that everything really is being done properly. And there could be a violation. A violation can be touching your hair like that, you know, and then working with food folk. They absolutely have to make sure that you have new gloves on. So there should be always a barrier between you and the food that you prepare if it's going to be cold food. Most of all of our food sort of more or less is sort of on this level. Can we warm something up?
Yeah.
Absolutely. How could we have it warmed up? If it first came out of the...
Dehydrated?
Yeah, possibly. It could be warmed up more perhaps. But, right. So how do we store things that are ready to serve? How are they stored? They have to be at...
Tight containers?
Yes, and they have to be at...
41 degrees.
41 degrees, excellent. Excellent, Michelle. They have to be held at 41 degrees. Some things cannot be held at a lower temperature, especially grasses. If you have lettuces or anything like that, that drops below that, broccoli, and it drops below 41 degrees, it won't be freezing, but grasses won't do very well at all, and they'll really less than be kept. So around about 41 degrees, your fridge should be sort of calibrated close to about 41 degrees. So if you're serving a soup, all your food then is stored at 41 degrees, which does not stop bacteria, but it kind of causes it to be slowed incredibly. But it doesn't stop it. But at freezing, it pretty much, you know, it stops it completely. So you can take something from 41 degrees and you can bring it, and then you can warm it up, and you can warm it up to around about 115 degrees is fine. 115 degrees is a temperature that's like a very hot water that you would wash your hands in, sort of. It's a very hot water. 120 degrees is a water that if you put your little finger in there, you could only put your little finger in there for a little while, and then you have to go, ooh, ow! Ooh, that's hot. Okay, so now that temperature is the temperature that enzymes starting to actually be less than kept. But below that temperature, enzymes can survive and survive. So we use a little steam to actually warm things up. So we take something out of the fridge, we can warm it up with a little steam, and we warm it up to about maybe only about between 110 and 115 degrees. Take the chill off it. But that warmth can be very helpful for older people, can be very helpful for younger people, can be very helpful for people who are it's not food that hasn't been easy for them to digest.